Vision required courage. Believing for something greater meant facing misunderstanding and skepticism from others. Many questioned his ideas, doubted his calling, and dismissed his dreams as unrealistic. Faith empowered him to stand firm even when support was scarce. He learned that vision often must be protected before it can be shared. Faith gave him the inner strength to hold on to what God had placed in his heart, even when no one else believed in it. Over time, vision shaped his actions. His actions. Faith-driven vision does not remain abstract. It influences daily choices. Yonggi Cho began to act in alignment with what he believed God had shown him, even when results were slow. Every small step taken in obedience reinforced his faith. His life demonstrates that vision powered by faith can break through the strongest limitations. When faith guides vision, circumstances no longer define the future. God does. Prayer became the lifeline that sustained Yonggi Cho when his own strength failed. Facing severe illness, emotional exhaustion, and overwhelming responsibility, he realized that human ability alone could not carry him forward. Prayer was not a last option for him. It was the source of renewal and direction. In moments of weakness, prayer became the place where fear was released and faith was restored. Through constant dependence on God, he learned that true strength is found not in self-effort, but in surrender. In prayer, Cho discovered intimacy with God. Intimacy with God. It was not about speaking many words or following rituals, but about opening his heart honestly before God. He poured out his doubts, frustrations, and fears, trusting that God could handle them. This honesty deepened his faith. Prayer became a space where burdens were exchanged for peace, and confusion was replaced with clarity. When external circumstances remained unchanged, prayer transformed his inner world. Prayer also reshaped his understanding of leadership and success. Instead of relying on strategy alone, Yonggi Cho learned to seek God's guidance before making decisions. He believed that prayer aligns human plans with divine will. This dependence on God prevented pride and kept his heart humble. Not yet, his heart humble. Prayer reminded him that every achievement was a result of God's grace, not personal ability. This mindset protected him from burnout and spiritual emptiness. Weakness no longer became something to hide. It became an invitation to pray more deeply. Cho taught that God's power is often revealed most clearly when people admit their limitations. Through prayer, he experienced renewed strength, both physically and spiritually. What seemed like weaknesses became channels through which God's power flowed. Prayer turned exhaustion into endurance and despair into hope. Over time, prayer became a lifestyle rather than an activity. It shaped his daily rhythms and decisions. Yonggi Cho's journey shows that lasting impact is not sustained by talent or effort alone, but by continual dependence on God. Prayer does not remove every challenge, but it equips the believer with the strength to face them. Through prayer, weakness is transformed into a testimony of God's sustaining power. Perseverance was the quiet force that carried Yonggi Cho through seasons when his journey was marked by long periods of struggle, misunderstanding, and visible lack of progress. There were times when the work seemed fruitless and the sacrifices felt unrewarded. Yet, Perseverance taught him to remain faithful even when results were invisible. He understood that quitting would cancel what faith had already begun. Instead of measuring success by immediate outcomes, he learned to measure it by obedience and endurance. Rejection was one of the greatest challenges he faced. Many questioned his methods, doubted his calling, and openly criticized his ideas. These voices could have easily silenced him, but perseverance kept him grounded in his purpose. Rather than allowing criticism to weaken his faith, he used it as motivation to trust God more deeply. Each setback became a test of commitment. Perseverance meant continuing to believe even when affirmation was absent. Suffering also played a shaping role in his perseverance. Physical illness, emotional pressure, and overwhelming responsibility often pushed him to the limits of his strength. Yet, these moments refined his faith instead of destroying it. He learned that pain could either make a person bitter or better. By choosing perseverance, he allowed suffering to produce patience, humility, and spiritual maturity. These qualities prepared him for the weight of greater influence later in life. Perseverance required discipline. It meant showing up consistently, praying continually, and serving faithfully even when enthusiasm faded. Yonggi Cho did not rely on emotional highs to sustain his calling. He understood that perseverance is built through daily faithfulness in small things. Over time, this steady commitment created spiritual resilience. His faith was no longer dependent on circumstances, but rooted in trust. Ultimately, perseverance transformed struggle into preparation. What looked like delay was actually development. The years of endurance shaped his character, deepened his compassion, and strengthened his leadership. Yonggi Cho's life shows that perseverance is not merely surviving hardship, but allowing hardship to shape purpose. Through unwavering endurance, faith matured, and suffering became the foundation for a global impact that followed. A life fully surrendered to God was the foundation of Yonggi Cho's global impact. His influence did not come from ambition or the pursuit of recognition, but from a deep commitment to obey God wherever that obedience led. Surrender meant trusting God not only with his successes, but also with his failures, weaknesses, and unanswered questions. By placing his entire life in God's hands, he allowed divine purpose to guide every step of his journey. Surrender reshaped his understanding of influence. Yonggi Cho did not seek to build something for his own name. Instead, he focused on serving people and honoring God. This mindset kept his heart aligned with humility. Even as his influence expanded across nations, he understood that true impact is not measured by numbers alone, but by transformed lives. By surrendering personal ambition, he became a vessel through which God could work on a global scale. Through surrender, his life became an example that inspired millions. People around the world resonated with his story because it reflected God's power working through an ordinary person. His faith journey gave hope to those who felt unseen or insignificant. By living a life submitted to God's will, he demonstrated that anyone, regardless of background or limitations, could be used by God for extraordinary purposes. Global impact also required faithfulness beyond personal comfort. Surrender often led him into responsibility, pressure, and sacrifice. Yeah. Yet he embraced these challenges, trusting that God's grace would be sufficient. He remained committed to prayer, teaching, and service, even when the demands were heavy. His obedience allowed God to extend his influence beyond borders, cultures, and generations. Ultimately, David Yonggi Cho's life proves that when a person fully surrenders to God, their life can touch the world in ways they never imagined. Global impact is not achieved by chasing greatness, but by faithfully walking in obedience. His journey from poverty to worldwide influence stands as a testimony that a surrendered life, guided by faith, becomes a powerful instrument in God's hands.